Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We are about 1 or 2 minutes before the start time, so we will allow people who are just arriving now to continue to arrive, and then we'll begin in about 1 or 2 minutes. Should be a good webinar today. We have a lot of information on JMeter and then how BlazeMeter extends JMeter's capabilities dramatically. We look forward to your questions, which you can ask in the questions tab in the webinar control panel. So we'll begin in about 1 minute. Okay, so just hang tight. Okay, we are at the start time. So we'll just before we begin, just a few announcements, and then I'll turn things over to our presenter, Avishai Ben-Zaken, who's a senior sales engineer, performance expert at BlazeMeter, in just 1 second. But before we begin, a few announcements. One is that today's webinar will be recorded. So if you come in late, or if you need to leave it a bit early, or if you want to just watch and review the session, let's say tomorrow, or at a later date for review purposes, you can and will be able to do so. You'll receive an email with the recording likely tomorrow, if not by Friday. So keep an eye out for that in your email. Secondly, as I mentioned just a second ago, but for people who are just arriving now, we will reserve some time for questions at the end of today's webinar. The way to ask questions is in the Questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. Please try to keep the questions on topic. We can't guarantee we'll get to every single question today, but we have them in the system, in the webinar system, and we'll be able to look back at them later, and we'll try to, if we don't answer it today, we'll answer it by email as much as possible. Then the topic of today's webinar, is a bit of JMeter and how BlazeMeter extends JMeter capabilities and makes it even better. So try to keep the questions on topic there. Finally, at the end of today's webinar, those who might have attended previous webinars know this, but we have a short survey that will pop up either as you're leaving or as the webinar comes to a close. The webinar survey only takes 30 seconds to fill out. It's just a couple of questions. And we highly encourage you to do so, and we really would appreciate if you do so for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it will allow you the opportunity to give your feedback to us about how the webinar went, how can we improve the webinars in the future, and we do appreciate if you're honest and let us know how we can make them even better next time. But secondly, it also, if you would like to request a follow-up one-on-one session or a session with your team to address your specific testing needs, it will allow you the opportunity to do so as well in a very easy, organized fashion for us. So if you could fill out that survey, that would be great. So I'll give her one more reminder as we are ending the webinar. So with all that said, I'm now going to turn things over to our presenter, Avishai. And Avishai, over to you.
Thank you, Jason, and thanks everyone for joining me today for this webinar. So I'm going to just review the topic of this webinar. So I'm going to talk about performance testing in general and what is load testing and what is stress testing, and actually why and when you should use stress testing and load testing. And then we will, of course, we can explain about exactly what JMeter is, and what is BlazeMeter, and how can BlazeMeter help you achieve your business goals and testing goals. It's going to be like an introduction to JMeter. It's going to be a very basic introduction to JMeter and to BlazeMeter, so we can walk you through the tools and the different elements and features that we have in JMeter and, of course, in BlazeMeter. And as Jason mentioned, you can ask questions at the GoToWebinar control panel. You have the questions box, so feel free to ask any questions that you may have, and of course we will try to address all of those questions. So before we start, just again a quick introduction to I will introduce myself. So my name is Abishai Ben Zaken, and I'm a sales development manager here at BlazeMeter. And I'm responsible for all the digital sales at BlazeMeter for APJ region, including, of course, India, Australia, Turkey, Israel, and Eastern Europe. And I will share my contact details at the end of today's webinar. So you can, of course, you can always drop me a line, and then you can have a one-on-one discussion to address your testing needs. So let's talk about the BlazeMeter, okay? Before we jump into JMeter. So BlazeMeter in general, it's a cloud environment run open source scripts. So we support JMeter, Selenium, Gatling, the Grinder, Locust.io, and other open source tools. So let's talk about, as I mentioned, it's a tool for performance testing. So let's talk about performance testing in general. So let me just share my screen for a second. Let me share the presentation that I have. So the question is, what is performance testing and why do you actually need it, right? So, performance testing it's a general name for tests that check how the system behaves and performs. It usually examines responsiveness, scalability, speed, and resource usage, etc. And you have different types of performance tests provide you with different data. So in general, performance testing determine your system business goals, so you can tell if your system behaves, in a satisfying way or not. Of course, according to your customers' needs. So if you work with the waterfall methodology, so then at least each time you release the version, so you can test the performance of your application and make sure that it's aligned with your business goals. And if you're shifting left and doing going agile, and I will speak about it, you should test continuously. So it means you can test more and test more often. So what is load testing? Okay. So load testing checks how your system functions under a heavy number of concurrent users, simultaneously users, performing transactions over a certain period of time. And of course, in other words, it actually checks how your system handles the heavy load volumes. There are a few types of open source load testing tools. Of course, JMeter is probably is the most popular and common tool. I can show you how you can run tests in JMeter and use even the BlazeMeter tools in order to create your basic JMeter script. And we'll do that in a few minutes. And basically, load testing is something that you should do all the time to ensure that the system is always on point. Basically because this is the purpose of the performance testing. As I mentioned, we have load testing, which is measuring the performance of your application under a certain load, and you have stress testing. So what is the difference? So stress testing checks actually the upper limits of your system by testing it under extreme loads. So it means that you can, for example, if you're expecting like 1,000 concurrent users in a specific time frame, so you can test your limit. You can test the limit of your application by running a test of, let's say, 5,000 virtual users, concurrent users, and to see exactly how your application behave under an extreme load. Okay. And of course, how it recovers when going back to the normal usage. So if you have like a peak in the usage, you can measure the performance and to see exactly what changed. Yeah, as you can see, so stress testing can be conducted through the load testing tools by defining the test case with a very high number of concurrent users. If your stress test includes a sudden ramp up, as I mentioned, number of virtual users, it's called the spike test. So let's say that you have like an e-commerce website, and then you like do like a campaign that if the users will enter the website in a specific time frame, they will get like a unique offer. So then you're expecting a spike. So this is why you should do like stress testing. Website stress tests and apps stress tests are important before a major events like Black Friday, ticket selling for a popular concert with high demand, or elections, or you have like so many cases that you should run stress tests. So you can definitely do that. So just very quickly, just to show you, so apps nowadays are the face of your business. So definitely performance testing becomes a business critical. And why is that? Because users expect a perfect experience with the faster application load times. So you need to make sure that your application, if it's a mobile application or web application, can actually deliver. And even if you're a big company, sometimes things are going bad. So as you can see, for example, if you're familiar with Nordstrom, which is a retail company, so a few months ago they had like a big sale, and their site crashed. The site crashed under the load. They lost millions in revenue, and of course in bad reputation. And so as you can see, the all social network was flooded with like tweets and posts against Nordstrom, because people actually waited days for the sale, and then once they actually went to the website crashed. So as I mentioned, JMeter is probably the most common and popular tool for performance testing. I mean, open source tool. So let me show you how you can run JMeter test, and let me walk you through the JMeter application. So in order to create the basic script, the JMeter script, and then of course I can show you how you can run the script in JMeter. So basically just to show you the GUI of the BlazeMeter application, so the JMeter application. So this is JMeter. Okay, this is the JMeter GUI. And let's create a basic script that we can actually run in JMeter, and after that in BlazeMeter. So we'll just go to the Blaze demo application, which is a website that we created in order to simulate a simple travel agency booking system. And we will create a script by using the BlazeMeter Chrome extension. It's a Chrome recorder that you can use. Of course, you can download the Chrome recorder for free from Google. Just type in Google, BlazeMeter Chrome extension. You can add the extension to your browser. And it enables you to record a session and export a JMX file, a JMeter script out of it. So first of all, let me just name the script, the recording. So this is the name. And now we can hit record, and we can actually create the user journey that I would like to test. So let's say that I'm a user who want to purchase a flight ticket from Philadelphia to, let's say, London. We can find flights. I can select each one of the flights. So let's select the Lufthansa. I will just fill in my name, address, city, state, zip code, and of course my credit card number in order to make the purchase. Sorry. Name of the card. And I can make the purchase. So this is the confirmation page. So this was the scenario. This was the user journey. A user want to purchase a flight ticket from Philadelphia to London. You choose the Lufthansa flight, and then you make the purchase. So now I can hit stop, and I can export my JMX file. Perfect. Now I have my JMeter script, so I can just go back to the JMeter application and open the file. So let's go open, downloads. This is the file. Perfect. So as you can see here, I already have an authorization manager, cookie manager, and cache manager, and I have my thread group with the three different scenarios, steps in my scenario. I have the reservation page, the purchase page, and the confirmation page. So we can just open each one of them. So as you can see in the reservation, we captured that we're going to purchase the flight ticket from London to Philadelphia. As you can see here, it's HTTP request. You can see that actually you can find the flight ticket details and the number of flight, London, Lufthansa, each the airline. You can see, of course, my details. I mean, the zip code, address, name of the card, the credit card number, etc. So, for example, I can run this test with, let's say, even 50 users or 100 users. But, it doesn't make sense, because if I will run this test with, let's say, with 50 concurrent users, So it means that we will going to run a test with 50 users that are going to do the same action with the same username. So it's like 50 users, all of them will purchase flight ticket from, let's say, from Philadelphia. When was it? From London to, from Philadelphia to London. And we're going to use the same credentials. I mean, the Avishai Ben Zaken, the same credit card number, etc. But you can do much more than that. So, for example, let me just go back to the. I will let you just hop into the BlazeMeter knowledge base, which is guide.blazemeter.com. So, for example, we can add an element which called the CSV data set config element. So here you have a very detailed guide how you can actually add a CSV data set config element to your JMeter script. So it means that you can upload a CSV file with different usernames and passwords and credit card numbers. So you can, for example, you can upload the file, a CSV file with 100 lines, I mean 100 usernames and passwords. So you can run almost an actual test. So it means, because eventually the goal is to run a test which will be, of course, as realistic as possible. So running a test with 50 concurrent users that are going to use the same credential and do the same scenario, it's okay. But again, it's only tests something which is very, let's call it minimal. But at the same time, when you're using, for example, the CSV dataset config, you can run a much more comprehensive and realistic test. And this is, of course, the goal of performance testing. It's to run tests which, of course, will be as realistic as possible. So, for example, in JMeter, I can add listeners, I can add assertions, you can add so many things to JMeter. So JMeter is an excellent tool. So with JMeter, you can test live streaming applications, you can test mobile applications, you can test APIs, you can test e-commerce websites. And again, JMeter is great, but, yeah, there is a but, JMeter has its limitations. And this is where actually BlazeMeter kicks in. So as I mentioned, BlazeMeter is a next generation cloud-based environment that expands far beyond JMeter limitations. So what does it mean? So let me just go back to the BlazeMeter website. So what does it mean? So it means that, eventually if you're familiar with JMeter, and by the way, sorry, I forgot to mention that if you're looking to learn more about JMeter, so a few months ago, we launched a JMeter Academy. So even if it's the first time that you hear about JMeter, you have introduction to JMeter. So it's an online course. Of course, these are all free courses and tutorials that you can, of course, take online. You have the introduction to the JMeter, so it's like walk you through the whole process of creating the new script, how to use the different elements in JMeter, how to build like a test plan. You can do all of that. And you can even have like courses for advanced JMeter. So even if you're familiar with JMeter, you can take it to the next level by learning more like advanced features. So again, you can just you can just type in Google BlazeMeter JMeter Academy, and of course you will see this link, which is a JMeter tutorial, and then you can take this online courses. Which of course these are free resources that BlazeMeter contributed to the open source community. So again, if you're familiar with JMeter, you know that JMeter has its limitations. So if we are talking about scalability, so let's say that with JMeter, eventually you're going to use your local PC and computer, which of course you have limited resources with one computer. So scaling with JMeter might be very challenging and even impossible sometimes. While scaling with BlazeMeter is super easy, no problem whatsoever. With BlazeMeter, you can test up to 5 million concurrent users. You can run multiple scenarios simultaneously. You can run multiple scripts simultaneously. And you can even distribute the load simultaneously from almost 40 different locations around the globe. In addition, we have integrations integration with CI and CD tools such as Jenkins, TeamCity, Bamboo. So, for example, it means that you can integrate your BlazeMeter account with the Jenkins account. So you can create a build in Jenkins and fire the test from Jenkins. Eventually, it's taking and implementing BlazeMeter as part of the automation process. Okay, so you can schedule tests, you can run automated tests, and it means like shift left. You can test during the development cycle and test very often. So you can schedule tests for like every evening. You can run some tests. You can do all of that with the ability to integrate your CI tool with BlazeMeter. And at the same time, we have even integrations with APM tools, including Dynatrace, AppDynamics, New Relic, CA Technologies APM tool, CloudWatch. So, because eventually BlazeMeter provides you with the site statistics, and the APM tool provides you with the backend statistics. BlazeMeter answers the question when you reach the bottleneck, so you can very easily analyze and see when you reach the bottleneck. By using an APM tool, you'll be able to understand not just when you reach the bottleneck, but actually what caused the bottlenecks. So it's a perfect combination when answering when and what, when we reach the bottleneck and what caused the bottleneck. So BlazeMeter provides, we have plugins for all the mentioned tools, so you can easily integrate your APM tool with BlazeMeter and have all of the metrics in the BlazeMeter reports. And we have a great reporting tool, as I will show you, a very comprehensive and robust reporting tool that provides you with all the information that you need in order to really understand the performance of your application. And why is it's like compared day to night between BlazeMeter and JMeter. Again, JMeter is great, but JMeter has its limitation. So if I will run the test and I will try to analyze the report, it's going to be a bit difficult unless you are very, very familiar with JMeter. And even if you're very familiar with JMeter, you have so many things that I will show you in the BlazeMeter reporting tool. So it's like enhanced features, enhanced capability, and it's much easier to really analyze and understand the performance of your application and what needs to be done in order to solve the issue. So we can show you that. And last but not least, we are not just an open source community. BlazeMeter is not just an open source community. So we have professional services and support team and blog and resources such as knowledge base. You can find hundreds, if not thousands, of articles which are related to JMeter, BlazeMeter, advanced testing in JMeter, or how you can actually create Groovy scripts. You can do all of that. You can find all the information in the BlazeMeter knowledge base and blog. And we have monthly webinars and bi-weekly webinars. So again, the purpose, we do that because we want to provide the open source community with the ability to run very successful tests. So we provide with all the support and the knowledge that needs to be provided in order to get actually to reach this level. So let me show you the BlazeMeter application. So let me just log into my account. By the way, you can sign up for BlazeMeter free account today. It will take you probably less than 30 seconds to sign up for the BlazeMeter app. With the BlazeMeter free tier, you can test up to 10 tests. You can run each test with up to 50 concurrent users, so you can get the feeling. You can run some tests. You can upload your JMeter script. You can start testing. So this is the dashboard. So once I logged into my application, once I logged into the BlazeMeter application, of course I can see this dashboard. As you can see on the left, you can see the recent test runs that I ran. You can see the recently updated tests, the usage report, and of course you can manage the account from the dashboard as well. So I can just go to the account settings. I can add users, or can add or remove users. I can set the account roles. I can attach each one of the users and testers to each one of the workspaces, and I will explain immediately what is a workspace. I can set roles, so if it's a tester, a manager, or a viewer. And as I mentioned, you can even set different workspaces. So what does it mean? So even if you have, like in your company, I don't know, 500 testers, and they work on like multiple projects for multiple clients, for different clients. So with the BlazeMeter application, you can set different workspaces. So you can have a full separation between the teams. So each tester can, of course, can log into his account from everywhere in the globe. You can just access his workspace and run the test, and of course view the relevant results. So even the manager can, review and manage the different teams by using the workspace. So you can like follow up. You can follow up and to see exactly what happened in each one of the workspaces and in each one of the teams. And of course, by that way, you eliminate the risk of leak of information between one project to another. And even if you have one client, but you have teams that works on different parts of the project, again, you can set different workspaces for each one of the parts of the project. So you can do that, and you can manage the workspace from here as well. And you can view the usage report in a specific time frame. So I can just go back and see how many tests are ran in a specific time frame, or how many virtual users, VUH, I mean virtual user hours are used in this specific time frame. And I can see the billing information, such as the name of the plan, maximum concurrency, the number of engines that they will use in each one of the tests. I can use up to, and this is the maximum number of engines that I can use. Remaining credits, payment method, invoices, receipts, the super important management features that you can, of course, you can do that. You can view each one of the tests. You can just go back to each one of the tests that you previously ran in BlazeMeter. So for example, I ran 230 tests in total. So I can access each one of them, and even with one click, I can just run the test again. And I can view each one of the reports that I previously ran. And of course, from the dashboard, you can create new tests. So let's talk about the different tests that you have in BlazeMeter. So first of all, JMeter test. As I mentioned, JMeter is probably the most popular and common open source tool for performance testing. Again, we truly believe that JMeter is great. So if you're familiar with JMeter, it's perfect. But we expand far beyond the JMeter limitations. As I mentioned, scalability, integrations, reporting, and all of that, and I will show you that. So I will show you how we can actually run a JMeter test, and we will use the JMeter script that we just created by using the BlazeMeter Chrome extension. The second option is a URL API test. So the URL API test it's a very cool test that we have. You don't even need the JMeter for that. So even if you're not familiar with JMeter, you can run a URL API test. You can just type in the URLs that you would like to hit with the load. It can be multiple URLs, and we will hit those URLs with the load. It's a perfect solution if you're looking to run a very simplified test. I mean, like if you're testing like a website, a simple website, a static website, which of course doesn't involve authentication. So you can actually run a URL API test. You can type in the URL or the API endpoint, and we will run the test. Again, you don't need even JMeter for that. It's a basic test. And of course, if you're familiar with JMeter, it's much better to run a JMeter test. The third option is a multi-test. So the multi-test is an awesome feature that we have, which enables you to run a very sophisticated test. So what does it mean? It means that you can run multiple scenarios simultaneously. You can run multiple scripts simultaneously, and you can even distribute the load simultaneously from multiple locations around the globe. I will show you how you can do that. Because, for example, if you're a website, like let's say e-commerce website, then you have users from multiple locations like US, Europe, Asia, etc. So again, because the purpose is to run a test which will be, of course, as realistic as possible. So with BlazeMeter, you can run a multi-test with having the same script or different scripts from multiple locations, and I will show you how you can do that. And you have Taurus. So Taurus it's an open source automation framework that actually we developed. It's a framework that's for running various open source load testing tools and functional testing tools. So let me just go for gettaurus.com. So gettaurus.com is the website for Taurus. So as you can see, Taurus support something like 20 different tools. So you can run JMeter scripts in Taurus. You can run Selenium, JUnit, Tong, Nose, PyTest, etc., etc. Getlink, the Grinder, Locust, pbench. All of those open source tools, scripts can be run. You can actually run those tests and use those scenarios in Taurus. And again, JMeter and Selenium and Getlink and the Grinder are probably the most common tools for performance testing, and we support BlazeMeter. Taurus is 100% compatible with those tools, so it means that you can run your scripts in Taurus as well. We just launched a beginner's course for Taurus. You can have a very quick introduction to the Torus application, how you can actually run the test, how Torus works. So Torus actually enables you to run the script with using like a friendly environment. I mean, like using a friendly web developer-oriented approach. Like you can have a YAML format. You know, YAML format, it's a readable format. So let me just show you how a YAML format looks like. So let me just go to the desktop. I have my demos, and let's create a JMeter script that is written in YAML format. So this is actually a JMeter script. So you can of course you can use the JMeter GUI for that. Okay, you can write the YAML format. So for example, it's going to be an execute. We're going to execute with JMeter 1,000 virtual users, and the duration of the test is going to be 10 minutes. We're going to do ramp up time of 300 seconds. We're going to test a scenario which is called the thread group, and this is the actual scenario. So you can run this script. So once you have the YAML format, you can just go back. I can just go back to the application, and I can upload my Torus test, or I can even launch the test from a single command line by using Torus. And again, you should, if you're interested in hearing more and learning more about Torus, you can just go to the, as I mentioned, to the Torus website, which is gettorus.org, and you have the getting started with Torus, so you can find all the information which is related to Torus. And if you would like to have one-on-one demo regarding Torus, of course, you can always ping me. As I mentioned, BlazeMeter supports Selenium as well, so you can run a functional test as well, which actually opens a real browser. But you know, Selenium takes much more resources, so you can even run like 100 users with the Selenium, or even more than that. And as I mentioned, BlazeMeter has some tools that can help you get started with creating your JMeter scripts, including the Chrome extension that we just used, and the proxy recorder that you can even use in order to record a browsing session in your mobile app or web app, and then export a JMX file. With BlazeMeter, you can test mobile applications, native, non-native, iOS, Android. You can test websites. You can test live streaming application. Again, everything that can be done in JMeter, Selenium, Gatling, the Gradual, all the different tools that I mentioned can be done in BlazeMeter. So let me show you how actually you can run the test. So first of all, let me just name the test, webinar, and the day today. And we can upload the script. So we created the script. I can upload the script. And again, once you created the script by using one of the BlazeMeter recorders, you have two options. One of them is to take the file, open it in JMeter, and modify it. And once you have the finalized version, you can just upload the script, as I just did, to the BlazeMeter application. Or you can just upload the script, exactly as I just did. So this is the script. Any relevant file, which is of course relevant for the test, can be uploaded and should be uploaded to this box, including, for example, the CSV file. So if I used the CSV dataset config element in JMeter, I can upload my CSV file, of course, with the JMeter script. So we will use those files in order to actually launch the test. I can set test failure criteria. These are like trend lines, thresholds that I would like to keep an eye on them. So for example, I can set that if the average response time is going to be greater than, let's do 7,000 milliseconds, which is 7 seconds. Let's call it too long. And we can set another one. For example, if the, let's say, hits per second, if the average hits per second is going to be less than 50, let's call it not enough. And if I will check these checkboxes, and one of those checkboxes, we can actually stop the test if one of those thresholds will be reached during the test. So if it's like a critical point, so if, for example, having like a response time which is much greater than 7 seconds, it's a critical point, so we can actually stop the test and to see exactly when you reach the level of our average response time of 7 seconds. And of course, if it will go over 7 seconds, then the test will automatically will stop. So you can just monitor that. We have so many features here, but let's talk about the most interesting ones. So for example, network emulation. So if you are testing mobile application or a web application or an application in total, in general, sorry, And you know that the end users are going to use mobile devices or mobile networks in order to use the application. So with BlazeMeter, you can emulate the load from multiple mobile networks, including Wi-Fi, 3G good, 4G, etc. So you can even customize it. So I can just customize the bandwidth, the latency, and the packet loss. So I can hit apply. And again, this feature enables you to run a much more comprehensive test. As mentioned earlier, so we can integrate your APM tool with BlazeMeter. We have out-of-the-box solution for AppDynamics, Dynatrace, New Relic Insights, New Relic, CA Technologies APM tool, of course, and CloudWatch. So I have my New Relic profile that I can attach to this test. So it means that we will have the backend statistics in my BlazeMeter report as well. And then we can just set the load configuration. As you can see, BlazeMeter provides you with the ability to run a very quick test, unlimited tests for debugging purposes. So before you run the actual test, before you select where you would like to distribute the load from, you can just run a quick test. As you can see, sandbox mode test with up to 20 users, and the total duration is up to 20 minutes, just to make sure that the script works well. It's a perfect tool for debugging purposes. So you can run as many tests as you need. No credits are deducted on sandbox mode. And once the script works well, you can just uncheck this checkbox. I can select where I would like to distribute the load from. As you can see, we work with the three biggest vendors, AWS, Google, and Microsoft Azure. So I can select each one of the locations. So let's do, for example, let's do Mumbai, India. And then I can set the maximum concurrency. So with BlazeMeter, you can test 20 users, 50 users, hundreds, thousands, or even up to 5 million concurrent users. So again, scaling is super easy. It's just a matter of clicks. So let's do 1,000. Let's do now 1,500 users. As you can see, I will use three engines, three load generators that are located in AWS Mumbai in order to distribute the load. Because we highly recommend that you will keep the number of threads, I mean concurrent users, simultaneously users, for each server for up to 500 users. But that way you actually eliminate the risk that our servers will collapse due to heavy load. So I can even just uncheck this checkbox and I can play with the number of engines. So I can set, let's say I want to use 10 engines with 500 users. As you can see, so the total concurrency is going to be 5,000 virtual users. I can limit the requests per second, and of course I can set the ramp-up time. You know, ramp-up time, it's the time that you take all the users start making requests. By default, it's 5 minutes, but you can run a much more moderate test. You can set it to, let's say, 15 minutes, or you can even like stress test your application. So we can set it to 0. So it means that once the servers are up, we will immediately start making requests with those 5,000 virtual users. And you can set like a, as I mentioned, 5 minutes ramp-up time or more than that. You can set the iterations. Of course, iterations, it's the number of times that we run the scenario over and over again during the duration of the test. And as for the duration, you can set it to 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, or even more than that. And with BlazeMeter, you can test, you can run the test for up to 72 hours. So if you're looking for soak testing as well, so you can definitely run soak tests with BlazeMeter. So let's keep it on 20 minutes, and we can save the test, and we can launch the servers. As you can see, it takes something like around 2 to 4 minutes to run the test. And why is that? Because we actually set and we create fresh servers in AWS in the location that you selected. So you get fresh servers, and then we upload the script and of course the agent to the cloud environment, and we can run the test. One thing that is super important to mention, that all the BlazeMeter reports are real-time reports. So it means that once the servers are up, you can immediately enter you can just go to the report and monitor the performance of your application on real-time. So meanwhile, let me just show you a report of a test that I previously ran, and then we can just go back to this test. So let's select a test that I ran yesterday. So as you can see, this is the summary report. This is a test that I ran yesterday. You can see the start and end time. You can see the duration. And it was a 1,000 virtual users test. It was a JMeter test, and I distributed the load from Virginia in US. I used US East AWS servers. And this was the average throughput that was measured during the test. I mean, the average hits per second, error percentage, response time, 90 percentile, and the bandwidth. And these are the response time graph and load graph. And by the way, these are interactive graphs, so you can just zoom in on specific time frame to see exactly what happened during this time frame. But these are only the summary graph. You get a much more detailed graph, which is the timeline report. So again, it's day and night if you compare the BlazeMeter reports to the JMeter reports, and it's much more. Now it's super easy to really analyze the performance and to see exactly what happened. So as you can see, you can add or remove different KPIs. So I can just unselect the hits per second, or I can just select different pages and to see exactly what was the performance in those pages. I can add latency, for example, to the graph, and I can even add my New Relic insights into the graph. So for example, I can add the CPU user utilization to the graph, which is the purple line, as you can see here. I can add the used bytes by host. And again, you can play with it. You can download, again, I can zoom in, simply what happened. I can download the graph as a PDF file or any other supported format. You get the request statistics. So this is the raw data that was collected during the test. So as you can see, I have the aggregate report. So I have the number of requests that are made in those 20 minutes. So in those 20 minutes, actually BlazeMeter generated more than 140,000 requests to the servers. And I used the same Blaze demo application to create the script. So as you can see, I have the reservation page, the purchase page, and the confirmation page. So you have the breakdown per page. So we had more than 47,000 requests in each one of the pages. So you can see the average response time per page or in total, hits per second, 90 percentile, minimum and maximum response time, bandwidth, error percentage, which is of course critical information. You can download the data as a CSV file, and you can select which KPIs you would like to include in the file. You can view and you can monitor the BlazeMeter engine health. I mean the load generators that are generating the load, to see exactly what was the performance of those engine health. So it means that you can. I will just log into the test that we just launched. So this is live, by the way, as you can see. We are 2 minutes into the test, and we have 90 minutes to go. So I can monitor the BlazeMeter engine health on real time. So as you can see, the CPU memory utilization is something like 8%, which is perfect. If it's less than 80%, everything is great. If it's more than 80%, there is a higher risk that our servers will collapse due to heavy load. And it means that you will probably need to use more servers, to add more servers to the test. And then, of course, you can distribute the load in a much more efficient way. I can see, of course, you can view the test failure criteria that we set. So at this moment, actually, we failed in one of those parameters, as you can see. The average hits per second is actually more than 50. It's something like 60, so it's great. But the actual average response time is greater than 7 seconds. So it means that, for example, if my manager would ask me, Avishai, so if I was a tester, can we maintain a 7,000 milliseconds, like 7 seconds average response time when having what we set it to 3,000 virtual users? Let me just see. 5,000 virtual users. So the answer is no, we cannot. And why is that? Because the actual average response time is going to be greater than 7 seconds. You can view the error reports as well. So you can see the response code and the response message, and of course how many times this error occurred during the test. So at the moment we have only one error, so we have nothing to show, but let me just go back for a second to the report that I ran yesterday. So as you can see here, I had errors. So I have the aggregate report for all the errors, so I can see the response code, the description, and how many times this error occurred during the test, and I have the breakdown per pages as well. You can download the server's logs if needed, then you can even download the JMeter artifacts, which is the JTLs files. And of course, you can open them locally in JMeter and view those JTLs files. You can view the original test configuration. You can share the report with your colleagues, with your team members. It's super easy, no problem whatsoever. You can just copy this link and paste it in an email thread, in Slack, or any other tool that you use in order to communicate with your team members. You can even download an executive summary with the high-level data. So you can actually upload your logo here. You can change the name of the test. You can write descriptive summary, conclusions, recommendations. So you can even share this report with your board members, for example, and they get the high-level data such as throughput, response time, error rates, slow responses, the setup, the graphs, and the aggregate report, as well as the error report. And of course, it's a printable report, so you can download it as a PDF file. We have another awesome feature. Yes, we have in addition, another one. An awesome feature that we have is the comparison tool. So with BlazeMeter, you can compare up to 5 tests simultaneously. So if you ran some tests and you would like to compare the performance of your application in those tests, so if you made the change in the code or in the backend side, so you can just easily just drag and drop up to 5 tests, or even select from the drop down. So you can just go and select one of them, or each one of them. So you can compare the performance of your application in those tests. You can see the users, the response time, latency, bandwidth, hits per second, and error percentage. So we have 15 minutes before we'll end this webinar, so we'll just show you very quickly before we'll go into the Q&A part. I would just want to show you how we can actually create a multi-test. So we'll just name the test. It's going to be a webinar. And now I can add scenarios that I would like to run simultaneously. So this is the scenario that we created together. So I can clone the scenario several times, but as you can see, it's going to be identical. So for example, I can just go to one of the scenarios. I can change the location. So I will distribute the load from Singapore, and the second scenario will be distributed from, let's say, Sydney, Australia. And the third one, we can keep it on Mumbai. But at the same time, I can change the entire configuration. So I can set, for example, users. So I want to run this scenario with only 1,000 users from the location that I just selected, which is Singapore. And I can set the ramp-up time to 2 minutes. And the duration of this scenario is going to be 30 minutes. And I can change, for example, network emulation on the Mumbai server. So I can just go to network emulation. I can change Wi-Fi. I can hit apply and save it. Again, the sky is the limit. If you're talking about like running realistic tests and sophisticated tests and complex tests, you can do that with BlazeMeter very easily. And I can run at the same time, I can run multiple scripts, even different scripts simultaneously. So I can just save this test. As you can see, it's going to be a 5 scenarios test. Total duration is going to be 30 minutes. And I'm going to distribute simultaneously the load from Mumbai, Singapore, and Sydney, Australia, all of those 5 scenarios. And even if you ran a 5 scenarios test, which actually is like running 5 tests simultaneously, only 1 credit will be deducted from your account when running a multi-test, which is awesome. You know, running 5 tests simultaneously, but still only 1 credit will be deducted from your account, because we deduct the credits accordingly to the test runs. So 5 scenarios, if you run it as 1 test run, only 1 credit will be deducted from your account. So let me show you very quickly a report of a multi-test. It's very similar to the report that I just showed you, with the one difference. So as you can see, it's a multi-test. It says multi, and I distributed the load from Mumbai and Oregon in this case, and I ran 3 scenarios, and you can view each one of the scenarios configuration. So you can see the scenarios. And this is, of course, this is the aggregate report for all of those 3 scenarios. But you might say, okay, this is great, but let's say that I distributed the load from Mumbai and Oregon, so I would like to see the difference in the performance if, for example, I ran the test from Mumbai and Oregon, or if I used different network emulations? So this is an excellent question. So as you can see here, on the bottom, you have 3 sessions involved in this multitest. So what does it mean? It means that you have a full report for each one of the scenarios that you ran simultaneously. So you get the aggregate report, but at the same time, you get a report for each one of the scenarios. And again, you can share the report, you can download the data. Everything that I just showed you can be done even on the multitest. So again, it's much easier to analyze the performance when you have this kind of reporting tool. So this was the quick introduction to JMeter and BlazeMeter. Now we have 10 minutes to go, so now it's a perfect time to ask questions. So feel free to reach out, and of course ask any questions. Just type it in the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's see if we have questions already. Oh, we have a lot of questions already. So the first question is, can we integrate any reporting tool and APM tools with JMeter directly? So the answer is no, but you can do that directly with BlazeMeter. The second question, it's a very long question. So what parameters or data do you collect from Dynatrace or New Relic, and what information does BlazeMeter process to get you what? It's depending on the alerts or fellow BlazeMeter create tests. So let me just show you. So if I will go to the BlazeMeter knowledge base, guide.blazemeter.com, you have a very detailed guide for each one of the integrations. So for example, let me just integrations, APM integrations. So you have a very detailed guide for each one of the tools. So for example, AppDynamics. So you can integrate your account very easily with the BlazeMeter application, and you can add the items, the different parameters that you would like to include in the BlazeMeter reports. That means that the data that we will pull from the APM tool and view those metrics in the BlazeMeter reports. So for example, as you can see here in this example, we will pull the average response time, calls per minute, error per minute, etc. And we will view those. As you can see, we will view those elements exactly in the BlazeMeter report. So everything that can be done in, for example, in your question was Dynatrace. Of course, if it's available, we can pull this information, and you can select the different parameters when you're actually integrating the tool with the BlazeMeter application. Next question is, does load test run from JMeter has any dependency on the JMeter engine? So first of all, definitely yes. So if you're running a JMeter test, if you're talking about running it from your local machine, so you're limited by limited of the resources that you have in your own device like PC, while it's much different when you're using the cloud environment for that. I see that you have set the engine count to 10. Could you let us know how to identify the engine count on JMeter and max can be given to have proper load test run? So again, in JMeter, you're using only one machine because you have only one machine, which is your computer. While with BlazeMeter, you can run with multiple engines from multiple locations, as I showed you. So if I will just go back to the test, you can see I can select the number of engines for each one of the scenarios that I'm going to run. I can just select the number of engines and you can play with it. Again, you cannot do that with JMeter because with JMeter, you're running the test from your local machine, which is, of course, only one engine. And this is why, again, JMeter is great, but JMeter has its limitations. Can you please show an example of integration with Jenkins? I see that Amir wrote it. You can always, please contact me after the session so I can even share actually a webinar which actually we had yesterday regarding the integration with Jenkins. So if you're interested, just drop me a line and I will share my contact details at the end. And you can, of course, I can send you links to tutorials about integrating with Jenkins. And if I will go back for a minute with my knowledge base, if I will type in Jenkins, you can see that how easy it's super easy to use the BlazeMeter plugin for Jenkins. and to create the build in Jenkins and run the test from Jenkins. Super easy. How the CPU usage has been calculated, i.e. I have hosted the service in my app server, and if I want to evaluate the CPU usage of my app server, how can I check? So again, if you're looking to check the performance of your backend side, I mean the servers that are hosting the application, for that you will need to use an APM tool that we covered during this demo, this webinar. So by using an APM tool, you will be able to understand the performance of your backend side. And by integrating BlazeMeter with your APM tool, you will be able to understand when you reach the bottleneck and what caused the bottleneck. So if you're looking to monitor the performance of your backend, for that you will need to use an APM tool. And of course, once you have the APM tool, you can even, as I mentioned, integrate it with the BlazeMeter and see the performance of your application under a certain load. Do we have a recorded video available for this session? Yes. So as Jason mentioned at the beginning of this session, this webinar has been recorded, and we will send you a link to the recording, so you can just go back and view the webinar. So the answer is yes. How many maximum users can be launched with JMeter in non-GUI mode? So in general, with JMeter, we can run maybe hundreds of users, but again, it all depends on the complexity of the scenario that you're looking to test. But because don't forget that again, you're using one engine, which is your local machine, or your server, your PC, in order to distribute the load. And this is why it's, JMeter has its limitations, while scaling with BlazeMeter is super easy. Can we integrate Jenkins with BlazeMeter? So the answer is definitely yes. As I just showed in this guide, BlazeMeter has a Jenkins plugin which enables you to connect Jenkins in order to run automated executions. Where do we add pacing time in BlazeMeter? So pacing time can be done in JMeter, and once you have the JMeter script, because as you know, BlazeMeter is not a scripting platform. It's a cloud environment to run open source scripts, and it expands far beyond those open source tools limitations. So everything that you will set in your JMeter script or any other tool, we will actually launch the test accordingly. So because we are 100% compatible with all of those tools, so if it can be done, if you're doing pacing in JMeter, so we will definitely run the test accordingly. Can we initiate BlazeMeter test from JMeter? So no, but the other way around, you can actually, as you know already, you can run JMeter test in BlazeMeter, not the other way around. How to identify bottlenecks in JMeter test? Which monitoring tool is better with BlazeMeter? So which monitoring tool works better with BlazeMeter? You have the most popular APM tools, which are of course Dynatrace, New Relic, and CI Technologies APM tool, for example. So you can use each one of them. Each one of them provides you with, one of them is a bit young and cool. The other one is a bit like a more, let's say, legacy solution. So it all depends on what you're looking for, and of course pricing. But the purpose of those tools is identical. It provides you with the backend information. And how you can actually identify the bottleneck. So if, for example, I will just go to one of the reports of our report, for example, the test that we launched together. So as you can see that I reached the bottleneck pretty quickly, something like in 2,000 users. And why is that? Because you can see that immediately the response time peaked from a few seconds to almost, just 1 second, to almost, what was it? 28 seconds. So it means that our servers reached the bottlenecks. They couldn't handle the number of requests that are made. So therefore, the response time of the servers is actually peaked from a few seconds to almost 30 seconds. And as you can see, at the same time, the number of hits per second is not going up. It's staying steady, which is a green line. And why is that? Because we reached the servers cannot maintain and cannot support the number of requests, and this is why, not you cannot actually reach, as you can see at the beginning, it's like linear. The number of hits per second is going up, but again, once you reach the bottleneck, boom, it's being almost steady, because again, the servers cannot support any more requests, and this is why the response time peaked. I can answer one or two questions, another one or two questions. The question is, one second, does that use for testing across browser testing? I'm not sure that I'm follow, but let's say if you're looking, you can of course you can use the BlazeMeter application for multiple browsers. You can record the sessions from multiple browsers, but I'm not sure that I'm following. So if you can just email me with the question, I will be happy to provide you with the most accurate answer for that. How to achieve the target volume? Again, you need to decide what would be the maximum concurrent users that you would like to test and you are expecting, and then you can just set it in your BlazeMeter application, and run the test accordingly. The last question, so let's do this last one. So if we have our CSV data file with passwords and username, and we upload it to the BlazeMeter, so what is the guarantee of the data security and privacy? So let me just show you. You can use a BlazeMeter privacy policy in this link. Just go to blazemeter.com, privacy policy, and I can just say that we work with financial institutes, with banks and insurance companies, so you can make sure that you can be ensured that we maintain the highest level of the privacy. We keep your data stored. So as Jensen mentioned, at the end of this webinar, you will have a very quick survey. So please take just 30 seconds to answer this survey. It will really help us to get better, and we will really love your feedback. And I hope you enjoyed this webinar. You can contact me, as you can see on the screen. If you're looking, for more information, just go to blazemeter.com. If you're looking for the blog, so this is the blog, resources, knowledge base, which is guide.blazemeter.com, and you can email me directly to avishai.benzaken@blazemeter.com. And I thank you all for your time today, and it was a great pleasure to having this webinar. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you very much.